Rome begins as a small town and gradually encompasses the Mediterranean and much of Europe. To her north were the Etruscans, the tan color. To her south, Magna Graecia, the Greeks, the green color. And further south and west, the Phoenicians, the purple color. All of these cultures influenced her, and she came into conflict with all of them, but what emerges as she grows is fully Roman. Rome was inland, as was Athens. Her port is Ostia at the mouth of the river Tiber. Boats brought goods to Ostia, which were offloaded to barges and hauled up the Tiber to Rome. The Tiber River actually is pretty shallow once you get up to Rome, so you can't take large boats up that far. The central focus of Rome was the Capitoline Hill and the Forum, which you see in this reconstruction. The Capitoline on the left features the temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus, the patron deity of Rome. We no longer have the temple, but this temple of Portunus gives us a sense of what it would have looked like, although the temple to Jupiter was on a much larger scale. So you can see that unlike the Parthenon, the columns do not go all the way around the temple, that the temple is up on a podium. It's very frontal. The steps only lead up to the front. It's quite different. And in this temple, there was not any sculpture, although there would have been some in the temple to Jupiter. The Forum is very much like the Agora in Athens. It's a marketplace, a civic center, and a religious center. Here is a plan of it from the first century BCE. The Basilica Julia and the Basilica Aemilia are centers of commerce and also places where legal actions could take place. There are temples to various deities, the temple of Castor and Pollux, the temple of Saturn, the temple of Concord. There's also the temple of Vesta, the little circular temple to the right-hand side. This is where the hearth of Rome was kept burning. This represented the health and success of Rome. As long as the hearth burned, Rome existed and was in a good state. The Senate met in the Curia Hostilia, which is the dotted area to the upper left. And then the Assembly met in the Comitium, the circular area. The Rostra was a platform where ambassadors could come and speak, where senators could speak to the assembly. In Augustus' time, Rome expands dramatically. You can see that there is a wall that goes around a large part of the city. We will be looking again at the Forum and then at the Forum of Augustus as well as the Campus Martius. Augustus adds many buildings to the Forum. He rebuilds the Curia after it is burned, so we now have the Curia Julia. He adds a new rostra, the Imperial Rostra. He also builds a temple to Julius Caesar on the right-hand side, the Temple of Divus Iulius. Here is a view of the Forum today, which has many other buildings which were added later. So these are not all Augustan. Here is the Curia Julia, which replaced the Curia Hostilia, which again was burnt in 52 BCE. This is where the Senate met in Augustus's time and later. And here is what we think it would have looked like on the inside. So the steps on either side would have held seats where the senators would have sat, and then the emperor would have sat at the end on that chair, on that throne. We also have a new rostra, which would have held the prows of ships, which were taken from the Battle of Actium when Augustus conquered Antony and Cleopatra. Here is a reconstruction of the Temple of the Divine Julius. Augustus built this to his adopted father, Julius Caesar, making a close connection to the previous ruler of Rome. Now, eventually, the Old Roman Forum, the Forum Romanum, becomes quite crowded. Augustus builds a new forum for himself, the Forum Augustus. This is a reconstruction of what it would have looked like. He actually vowed it in 42 BCE in honor of his father Julius Caesar. He said that he would build a temple to Caesar, or actually, he said he would build a temple to Mars Ultor, Mars the Avenger, if he was able to defeat the men who had killed Caesar. And he actually did this in 2 BCE. You can see that it's a very large, typical Roman temple with colonnades on either side. Here is what it looks like today. This is the main focus, the Temple of Mars Ultor, Mars the Avenger. Finally, in the Campus Martius, or Field of Mars, Augustus built a complex for himself, which included the Areopagus, the altar of peace on the right-hand side, the mausoleum, where Augustus and the rest of his family were buried, on the left-hand side, and then in the center there was an obelisk, which he brought back from Egypt, and which was used as a sundial. So the entire plaza between the Areopagus and the mausoleum were used as a sundial where you could tell the time of day. So these are the kinds of things that you need to keep in mind when you're thinking about Cicero and Caesar as well as Augustus. These are the public places that these men inhabited.